What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to From the Bench. I'm your host, Will Meadows, and today we have a huge show. We know what's coming this weekend. Tomorrow, the Vols take on Ohio State in the shoe at 8 p.m. So we've got a lot to talk about today. We've got a special guest, Eric Cain, host of What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to From the Bench. I'm your host, Will Meadows, and today is our Friday edition of the show. And ladies and gentlemen, we've got a lot to talk about today. As we know, tomorrow, Tennessee goes to the shoe. We play Ohio State in their inaugural 12-team playoff. It starts tonight with Indiana and Notre Dame. And usually we aren't talking about other teams, but we are going to talk about that because I've got my predictions right here for the college football playoffs, and we're going to talk about that and more. And obviously, we're going to take a much deeper dive into the matchup of Tennessee versus Ohio State. We've got a special guest today, Eric Cain, host of Locked On Vols. He's going to join us later on in the show. That's all I've got to say. We're going to get right into it. Before we start anything, make sure you guys like the video, comment your predictions for the game this weekend, and make sure you guys are subscribed and hit the notification bell. And make sure you guys are followed to all the social medias. The handles are listed below. So what we're going to do is start with Eric, and then we're going to kind of transition into my predictions because I want to talk about Tennessee first, and then I'll kind of lead that into the rest of it. So without further ado, here is Eric Cain. What's up, everybody? Welcome in Eric Cain, host of Locked On Vols today. How are you, Eric?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for coming on. This is his second time on the show today. Obviously, a little bit bigger implications to this game. The first game of the first game for Tennessee in the inaugural 12-team playoff. We're just going to kick this off. Obviously, it's a huge game in Ohio State. There's been a bunch of talk how many Tennessee fans are going to be there, and Ohio State's got a banged-up O-line with a banged-up left tackle. So what weaknesses do you think the Vols could attack with this kind of not normal Ohio State team?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of said it right there. It's Ohio State's offensive line that has lost the left tackle. And they played without the left tackle for about half the season, but he was projected to be a first rounder. And your center, they've been without the last two regular season games. He just won the Remington Award for the nation's best center. An award that Cooper Mace, finished, second or was in the running for as well. So, I mean, those are two pretty big pieces. And they have started four different guys at left guard this year. They've got a center that started all last year that's now playing center, but he's, at least on paper, not very great. And the right guard, according to Ryan Day, who started every game this year, might not start this game. So it feels like Ohio State's very much in flux up front, especially in the interior. The guy that's playing left tackle now, he's ended up starting between left tackle and left guard 10 of the 12 games, but he's a guard playing out of position. All that to say is Tennessee's defensive line's got to have a day. Your first-round draft pick in James Pierce has got to have a day. Omar Norman Lotta, Maury Thomas, Bryson Easton, Elijah Simmons, Jackson Moy, those guys in the interior really need to make things difficult because, as you know, man, those wide receivers from Ohio State are really, really good. And if you allow a guy we're talking about this going in the Georgia game, and Tennessee got no pressure, and Carson Beck picked them apart. So Tennessee's defensive line has got to own, at least in passing situations for the most part, Ohio State's offensive line. I think there's a good opportunity for that to happen.
Yeah, and it's kind of how you just compared to the Georgia game. That's exactly what I was thinking. Will Howard's another guy, kind of like Carson Beck. I mean, he's a good football player. There's no doubt about it. But if you can get him flustered, you can force him into making some bad decisions. I mean, you saw it with the Michigan game. I don't even know if Michigan ended up getting home with the sack, but they were pressuring him a lot, and he was not making good decisions. So, like you said, I mean, we said the same thing for Georgia, and everybody wanted to talk about how bad Carson Beck was up to that point, and then he threw for, 350? And 3 touchdowns and then added one on the ground. So and that's another thing. Will Howard's got, I mean, he's a pretty good athlete for a big guy like him. We're going to have to contain him as well, keep pass rush lane integrity. And you're right. I think a big guy that we could have, obviously not James Pierce, is Joshua Josephs. I don't know if you just mentioned him. Obviously, everybody knows who Joshua Josephs is.
Yeah.
But, I mean, he could have it because I think they're going to pay a lot of attention to James Pierce, especially on third downs. When we send in our third down package, I think a lot of attention is going to be on James Pierce because of how quick he gets off the line. So if Joshua Josephs can get a one-on-one situation, I think we're going to have to make plays on third down and get off the field because, like you said, their receivers are I mean, they've got 3 first-round picks just lined up.
Yeah, and I mean,
Um,
if you have a guy like James Pierce or Joshua Josephs that's going one on one on an island against a guy that's really a guard but playing left tackle, I mean, you're not going to win every battle, but you need to win your fair share. And so, yeah, to your point, I think that's a really good opportunity for Tennessee in this one.
Got to take advantage. How do you think it's another one involving the defensive line? Ohio State's running back duo is arguably the best running back duo in the country. Quinshon Judkins has been kind of relatively not bad, obviously, but to his expectations, hasn't really played up to his level. Again, as a Tennessee fan, I kind of feel like it's just like the Tennessee defense against Georgia. I feel like the prior to just doesn't matter when Tennessee's playing football because I mean our defense has looked incredible all year, and then against Georgia they forgot how to play defense. So how can we contain because they have a two-headed monster back there in the backfield of Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins.
Yeah, you got to rally to the football. And those two guys certainly not a bad rushing attack, but for for the for the level of players that they have in the backfield, you would think that the rushing attack would be best of
Mo-
the Big Ten.
because these guys are like, I mean, these are two of the top running backs on these mock drafts too, and
Yeah.
especially going into it, they were supposed to be, I mean, unstoppable in the backfield. And you're right, like they have kind of been not what they thought they'd be.
I think Henderson might be playing a little bit banged up right now, but nonetheless, you're running behind an offensive line that's dealing with a lot of injuries, and so I think that plays a big part in it. So again, just like in passing situations, defensive line has got to shut those down. Linebackers got to fill the holes. Safety's got to come up and play run support. I'm intrigued to know if to try to. I think Tennessee's going to bring a lot of interior pressure. At least that's what I would do if I was Tim Banks. Um, I'm curious if Ohio State would counter with some jet sweeps and outside zone and lead off tackle and stuff like that. And if that's the case, it's going to be big for those guys to set the edge and force it back inside. Rally to the football that more. But just play who you are. Just do what you do. And I mean, I think Tennessee gave up like a season high 50 yards or something to Florida. But outside of
Yeah.
that, they've just been so good against the run. And just be who you are. Do what you've done all season long. And you might not make them completely one dimensional, but if you put the game on Will Howard's shoulders and you're pressuring him, I like Tennessee's chances in that regard. Now, if you put the ball in his hands and he's got all day to throw, then that's going to be a
It's
tough
another
tough hill to
thing.
climb. But just be who you are and try to shut him down and not complete. You make him one dimensional, you take that, but put pressure on him and make him third and long instead of third and short.
Yeah, and like you said, rally into the football and the outside zones and jet sweeps. When they played Penn State and beat them, it's weird. Like Ryan Day, one game that's important. He looks incredible as a coach, and he comes with a great game plan. And Chip Kelly calls a good game. But then you see games like Michigan where you're supposed to be desperate, your back's against the wall, and you're supposed to be good. So I mean, against Penn State, they got to the edge. Their playmakers made plays. You got to think like we're paying all this money to Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate, who I hope he doesn't, because if you guys remember, Carnell Tate's recruitment came down to the wire between us and Ohio State. He
Yep.
ultimately ended up choosing Ohio State, and he gives me trust issues with kind of off the rails a little bit. He gives me trust issues because he told us Tennessee, 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 and comments on people's posts and everything, and then went to Ohio State. That's besides the point.
It's
But
recruiting, man. It's
it's
recruiting. You
ridiculous
can't get
now.
sucked in.
But Penn State, when they played Penn State, they got their playmakers out on the edge, and like you said, we're going to have to rally to the football because I mean these guys, whether they've been underwhelming or not, they can make one-on-one guys miss. They're not at
Yeah.
Ohio State for no reason, and I mean they're good football players. So kind of backtracking off of that, or the opposite side of that, Tennessee obviously has some weaknesses. Where do you think Tennessee needs to be better? That kind of the vice versa. Where can Ohio State kind of attack towards Tennessee that we've got to be better at?
Yeah, I mean, where Ohio State has just been so great on the perimeter with skill players, Tennessee's been super inconsistent, and I mean, all three layers, this is a really good Ohio State defense. I mean, yeah, sure, the Big Ten's top heavy, I get that. And they've got incredible stats, but I mean, they got good linebackers, they've got good players on the edge, they've got two incredible safeties. Caleb Downs, of course, we know played at Alabama last year. It's hard to like Tennessee's skill players, wide receivers against the
Yeah.
defensive backs of that of Ohio State. So, kind of the same thing with Tennessee. I'll try to pressure Nico a little bit, get him flushed, get rid of the football. And if I'm Ohio State, try to take advantage of that and go make some plays. Where I think Tennessee is going to have to, try to attack that Ohio State defense is tempo, man. And, you got to win the early downs to run tempo. You can say, oh, yeah, we run tempo, but if you go 3 and out or, 5 plays and punt,
Are you
the
really going
tempo's,
tempo?
yeah, you're not really going tempo. So you got to win the early downs, make it second short. Ohio State, sure, they played some no tempo, they played some no huddle offenses, but nothing like this. And I think that can be a real weapon, especially in the beginning of the game when it's going to be cold and you're trying to figure everything out. And the tempo can aid in getting you a quick score. Okay, well you have control of the football game right now. Okay, then you can get settled in. So, how do you get tempo? Run the football, do what you do best. Offensive line is really good at run blocking. Dylan Sampson is an All-American tailback. Run the football and then build off that with the play action pass. Nico did that against Vanderbilt. 4 touchdowns thrown off play action. Tennessee, one of the highest usage play action teams in the country. And again, I know this sounds simple, but just kind of be who you are. That's who you are, and don't try to be too much. I mean, Tennessee's going to take its shots, no doubt, but I like Ohio State's potential in the passing game a lot more than I like Tennessee's potential in the passing game, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and kind of like you said, they're good on all three levels, but their defensive backs kind of as well as their running backs, they're kind of similar. They've got some high dudes on the draft board, but like Denzel Burke is what at preseason was a first round pick. And I mean, after he played Oregon, they kind of got him on an island, and he had like three touchdowns put on him against Oregon. So
Yeah.
you're right, like they're really good NFL prospects and they're good football players, but they're gettable
Mhm.
is the thing. And I don't remember, he's got a weird last name, but one of their DBs leads the country in pass interferences. I mean, they're definitely gettable. You got to win, like you said. You got to take advantage of play action. They struggled to stop the run against Michigan, which Michigan just kind of leaned on them all game. I don't know if Tennessee's going to come out with the same thing. Tyleek Williams, I think it is their defensive tackle. He's a very good run defender.
Yeah.
But I mean, if we can get downhill and get them on their heels, and especially like I know this is kind of some people say this is dumb, but I really think if you can say we get the ball first and you score and they go 3 and out and then we score again, like this crowd, I mean, we've seen it with the tickets and with them losing to Michigan for what 4 years in a row. Like this crowd could turn on Ohio State really quick. Kirk Herbstreit said like if he was Ohio State, he almost rather play on the road because you don't really know what you're going to get out of them. And I mean, if you go into halftime, obviously that's different from 2 possessions into the game and you're running into the locker room being booed, that could really turn on a locker room real quick.
Well,
And
it's going to be cold too, right? I mean, it's going to be so freaking cold. And so, there'll be fans, some fans who are intoxicated, fans who are cold, fans who are angry. Same with Tennessee. Imagine if Tennessee gets down early in this game. You have fans that traveled all that way, right? I mean, it's the same thing on
yeah,
both sides. But if Tennessee can jump out to an early lead and just the conditions about it, I mean, yeah, and everything that's gone on with how the fan base can't stand Ryan Day, the Michigan loss, a team that's, came close to beating Oregon earlier in the season, but of course the Michigan loss is the one that stings the loudest. Yeah, I could absolutely see these fans turning on the home team in a game that I don't think it's going to be 50-50. I don't think it's going to be 60-40, but I do think Tennessee's going to have a great representation at this game, and that's awesome. First college football playoff game, but more than that, Tennessee fans just travel. Tennessee
yeah.
fans want to be there, and it's certainly being able to drive to the game is a big bonus. So I'm excited to see how many Tennessee fans are in Columbus.
I never realized how close Columbus was until this
Yeah.
week because I wanted to go. I have a dang basketball game in the morning, so I'm not able to go. But I have countless friends and family that are going to the game. I never knew it
Yeah.
was that close.
Yeah. Just hop in the car. It's about 5 hours away.
And they said it's not a bad drive either. Like, I mean, you get there I mean, it's not fun sitting in that. I could not imagine sitting because
I'll
it
be
might snow.
super thankful I'm in the press box.
Yeah, seriously, because it's like
Yeah.
15 degrees is what they're saying, especially when it gets night and I mean, kickoff at 8 p.m. when it's about 9:30 and you're sitting at halftime just freezing your rear end off.
Yeah.
That does not sound fun. So the last question we have, what type of game, I mean, like we just talked about, those crazy conditions in the cold, even if it snows, what type of game do you think Nico's going to have against this star-studded defense?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be overall this game. I think it's going to be low scoring. I think it's going to be defense because even if it was, 60 degrees, Tennessee plays really good defense. Ohio State plays really good defense. That's the strength of these two ball clubs. So, I mean, I expect Tennessee overall in this game to lean on the defense, lean on the run. And then for Nico, again, like I said earlier, build off the play action pass. I mean, Tennessee they want to take the splash plays and the explosive plays, and I get all that. I mean, 2021, 22, that's what
Yeah.
this offense here at Tennessee was built off of. I get it, but I mean, especially with it being so cold, like, how about you let Nico warm up a little bit? I mean, you can take your shot plays at some point. I get it, but how about throwing a little out, throwing a little hitch, throwing a little drag, use the tight ends, let Nico warm up, literally, no pun intended,
Yeah.
let him warm up a little bit in this game and then take your shots. And I mean, that's kind of what I would do. But again, all that is great, when you're winning the early downs, when you're running the football, doing that pin and pull with the tackle, and running a little tempo. So, I mean, I like Nico. I like Nico's confidence. His ability to go down to Athens a couple of weeks ago, and he was unfazed. Did he play a perfect game? No, but I thought he played a pretty good game in the
Yeah.
conditions. That gave me a lot of confidence. We've seen him make throws to win this game, to win this team football games against Alabama. I know it was Vanderbilt, but I thought it was a huge moment on that
No,
second
ser
offensive
yeah.
possession. Yeah, when they're down 14-0 and facing third down, third down, first down throw, and then later on it was 3rd and 8 and threw a touchdown. I mean, that was a big moment. So
Yeah.
I like Nico heading into this game, and I think that if it comes down to one of the quarterbacks that need to go make a play in the fourth quarter, I'll bet the life savings on Nico more so than I will Howard.
Yeah.
Howard's a fine player, again, like you said earlier, but Nico just has more ability, so I think he's gonna be fine. He needs to avoid hurting his football team, turning the football over, but I think he's got enough help with that offensive line in that run game, and certainly the defense that they're not going to ask him to do too much, but just go out there and make a play or two and see what happens.
And manage it. I think is the main thing, especially in these conditions with the crowd behind Ohio State, if they're behind them, like we said, with the scoring, just manage it. Just
Yeah.
don't ruin it. And I'm with you. I thought the Vanderbilt game was obviously it was statistically his best game, but
Hmm.
the throw he looked more in sync and in the flow of the game.
Yeah.
His one pick he had, I don't even think everyone's like it was so underthrown. I think that's more of a bad decision than it is because like what human is throwing it from the other hash 50 yards down the field? I mean, that kind of just shows the confidence
I
he
mean, it was
has.
underthrown, but even more so that it was underthrown, it was so he just didn't have enough on it from that hash. It was so far inside. So like Thornton didn't even have an
Yeah, a
opportunity to go
chance to
get it.
make it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, he played his pace, I thought, which kind of is a basketball term
Yeah.
in that game was just light years kind of what I thought from the rest of the year because even against Alabama, obviously the crowd's with him, but he was kind of sped up in my opinion all
Hmm.
year and second guessing himself is what I really think, especially through in the midway through the year. I always felt like he'd see one read and it'd kind of be there and he has the arm talent to make the throw, but then he'd go back and then he wanted to come back to it and it's not there anymore. He
Yeah.
didn't seem like he was second guessing himself. And like I said, he just seemed in the flow of the game and was making plays. Kind of people that's going to have to help him. I talk about him all the time. He's a regular on the show. Mike Matthews with Chaz Nimrod, Caleb Webb gone. Obviously, Nathan Laycock's gone, but I mean, Mike Matthews was ahead of him in the depth chart. What type of game do you think Mike Matthews or really any of the receivers could have? Because, like you said, this defense has got a lot of good DBs.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I mean, I think yeah, I think Dante Thornton needs to be, who he is for you and your big play guy. If you hit on one of those splash plays, I'd love it to go to him because he just got those long strides when he's behind the secondary. It's like they just can't catch him.
Yeah.
Brew McCoy, going to play in this game, and I really, really Here's my thing about the slot too. Like, it's Squirrel White, who we think's going to play in this game. We'll have to see. But I mean, even if, like, what if he misses a play or something? It's like, what's your other option at slot? What I would do is, man, I would slide Brew down. I
Hmm.
would use Brew McCoy like they used Velus Jones in 2021, man. Just like using him, short guy, pinball machine, gets like a possession type receiver. And of course,
Yeah.
Velus had the wheels more so than Brew, but I would use Brew as a possession receiver in the slot if it needed to be. But I think Brew McCoy is going to have a big game. But more so than anything, Thornton, you hope they connect on some deep ones. Brew to move the sticks. I think the tight ends. I think this can be a Miles Kitzman game. Not only like Pat, in the aerial attack, but on third and short, he's a key blocker. But more than anything, man, it's Dylan Sampson. Be who you are. Dylan
Yeah.
Sampson's your best football player. He is rested. He is feeling better than he has all year long. Going up against a really stout rush defense, but that really hasn't stopped Dylan Sampson all year long. So Sampson's got to have a big day to help Nico out.
Yeah. And it's kind of, uh, I mean, like we talked about, I mean, it's play action. Like
Mm,
the run game's only going to make it easier on Nico. It's going to make it easier for guys to be one-on-one in space. And like we've said, they're gettable. So
yeah.
one-on-one could be the preferred look for this Tennessee offense. So we say all that to say, tomorrow, the big day, 8 p.m. in the shoe. What's your prediction for the game?
Yeah, I like it low scoring. I like Tennessee. The teams are going to turn it over. That football is going to be as hard as a rock. It's going to
Yeah.
be it's not going to be fun at times. I like Tennessee to make some more plays. When it first came out, I was just no chance I was ever going to pick Tennessee to win this game. It was just Ohio State immediately, but dug down to the matchup and more, you kind of talk yourself into it. But I mean, it was always Tennessee could win, but I was never going to pick Tennessee. But I flipped this week. I'm going to pick Tennessee. I'm going to go against the lack of a win in a big game narrative, on the road narrative. I understand all that. I just think this is going to be a muddied up game. It's going to be low scoring and run game and defense travels, and Tennessee's got both of them. I understand Ohio State's got one of those as well, but defense and run game travels, and I like Tennessee's tempo to smack them early, and I like Tennessee to win the red zone. I think the red zone is going to be a huge thing in this football game because efficiency-wise, Ohio State, of all playoff teams, ranks first on offense and second on defense and red zone efficiency, whereas Tennessee ranks first on defense and like 11th on offense. But
Yeah.
I think this is the game where Tennessee can cash in, score more touchdowns and field goals, and give me Tennessee to win a low-scoring game by 3. We'll go 24-21, and the Vols are off to Pasadena for the Rose Bowl on New
For the
Year's
Rose
Day.
Bowl. I agree. I have been Ohio State, Ohio State, Ohio State, but kind of like you said, I talked myself into it, and maybe
Yeah,
the fan in me. But and it's kind of like I'm the first one to say, and I've talked about it a ton on this show. The people that listen every day know I am not a believer of this Tennessee team on the road. As much as
yeah,
I hate to say it, I mean, years prior and games prior, I haven't been proved wrong yet. But it's kind of like Peyton Manning and Tom Brady when they'd always play each other, and Tom Brady would just beat up on Peyton Manning all the time. But eventually, Peyton Manning got him one. I'm
yeah,
hoping it's the same thing with Josh Allen and Pat Mahomes, but that's besides the point. I'm hoping that we can just get over the hump and get the monkey off of Josh Heupel's back and win. This is the biggest one he's got. If he
yeah.
wins this one, you kind of forget about the others, but especially with recency bias in the sports media world.
You're only
Uh,
as good as your last one. Yeah,
yeah. So, I mean, if you win this one, the monkey of you can't win on the road for Josh Heupel. I mean, he'll be like 1-9 in big games and games that matter on the road, but we're only going to care about that one, and that's all that matters. So,
yeah,
I think my score prediction, and obviously I'll say it later in the show, I think it was like 28-24. I think it's going to be close. I don't think there's going to be too many field goals in this game because that ball is going to be hard as a rock.
yeah.
Like it's gonna be like kicking a stone 50 yards,
Hmm.
and I don't think that's gonna work. And the wind and everything else, like I think people are gonna have, like you said, are gonna have to come up big in the red zone. And I like our run game in the red zone. I think if we can get it to first and goal at the 9, I think we can get it to second goal at the 2, and just have us punch it in. So that's what I'm hoping for. Like I said, I think I may have talked myself into that as a fan more than anything, but I'm gonna hope I'm right.
Yeah, we'll see what happens, man. This is the game you want. As a fan, you can reflect back on the last couple of years and just see how far this program is. But as Josh Heupel said, you're not just happy to have a cup of coffee; just go win this thing.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you again for coming on to the show. Everybody, make sure you guys go check out Locked On Vols. It's, in my opinion, the best Tennessee podcast around. And Eric, thank you for coming on, man.
Well, appreciate you, man. Thanks so much.
That was Eric Cain, and again, a big thank you to him. He's a great family friend of mine and has always been there to help me. Like I said, it's his second time on the show, so a big thanks to him for joining. Like I said, his podcast is absolutely amazing. It's on YouTube and wherever, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts. It's available. It's like I said, it's Locked On Vols. It really is incredible. It's my favorite. I listen to it every day, and I encourage everybody else to go give it a listen. He's incredible at what he does, and he is kind of a role model for me in this field and stuff like that. So we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna kind of push in to my predictions for the playoffs as they start tonight. Like I said, Indiana at Notre Dame should be a cold one, just like all the rest of the playoff games. At Penn State, it's gonna be cold. Texas probably ain't gonna be that cold. I mean, it'll be cold, but not like it is up north. So the first game we're gonna talk about, we're not gonna talk too much about it, as me and Eric just made our predictions, but Tennessee and Ohio State, excuse me, I'm going to be reading off of this because I got to see the bracket that I've homemade, drawn out right here. I've got Tennessee beating Ohio State. I just think, like I said, I feel like I've kind of talked myself into it. I'm going to hope and pray that we do. And like I said, It's and y'all have heard me say it time and time again. It's hard to trust a Josh Heupel-led team on the road, but if you win one here, all that goes out the door. You can be 1-8 on the road in big games, but if you won this one, that's all that matters. So I'm going to hope and pray that I'm correct on that one, and I hope that the Vols are going to have to travel to Pasadena January 1 to start the new year in the Rose Bowl against Oregon. The next first-round matchup, I think it's tomorrow, yes, at noon. I'm pretty sure it is. Clemson and Texas, the ACC champion. It's the 12 seed. The Clemson Tigers are coming off of they're in the midst of a 3-loss season. Cade Klubnik and Quinn Ewers, they played once in high school. If you guys are familiar with that, Cade Klubnik got the best of them. And, this one to me, Clemson is a solid football team. I'm not high on Texas at all. I've talked about that before. I'm just not. I'm going to take Texas in this one, but it's only because I think Clemson's the worst team out of the 12 in here. I think that their receivers could get the best of Clemson's DBs, and I just don't think they're going to be able to score enough points. And the reason I say that, I don't mean that as this game's going to be very high scoring. Texas's defense is too good for Clemson. So that's what I'm going to have there. And we're going to move on just to go to all the first-round picks. We're not going to stay at the top of the bracket and then move down to the bottom. Another first-round matchup, the one tonight, like I just said, IU, Indiana, traveling to Notre Dame, the 10 versus 7 seed, and I'm very high on Notre Dame. You guys are going to see that later on in this bracket. I think their defense is very good. Their secondary is incredible. They have one of the best safeties in college football, and they're missing their best DB. They've missed him all year. He was out to a season-ending injury about halfway through the year, Benjamin Morrison. But I think Notre Dame's just kind of able to lean on Indiana in this one. Indiana's got a solid defense. They've been a good team. Now, granted, have they played the best teams? No. The one time that they got a good team, they played Ohio State and lost, and it wasn't in pretty fashion. For that reason, I'm going to take Notre Dame. Like I said, I think they're going to be able to lean on them because Jeremiah Love is one of the better running backs in the country, and he's probably let's read the teams on here. I think I didn't want to say something out of the ordinary, but I think he's probably the third best running back in the field of the college football playoffs behind Ashton Genty and Dylan Sampson. I think he can make something happen. I think that Notre Dame can really Indiana runs a lot of RPO, and I think those safeties like Xavier Watts can come down and make plays. And I think Notre Dame at home wins this one against Indiana. The last first-round matchup we have is SMU and Penn State. Not going to say too much about this one. I think Penn State curb stomps SMU in the freezing cold. Nick Singleton and Katron Allen's going to start running all over that SMU defense. I'm not saying it's going to be a blowout per se, but I think they're just kind of run through them. Like I think they may win by 17, but it'll never be a question that Penn State has control of the game. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Back up to the top, Tennessee and Oregon. I love my Vols. Like I said, I talked myself into picking them over Ohio State, which I didn't have. I had Ohio State for the most part. I think this is where the season comes to an end. Unfortunately, Oregon's a very good football team, and it's going to be out towards Oregon. It's going to be a lot of Oregon fans there. Now, don't get me wrong. Tennessee fans were going to make the trip because that's how Tennessee fans are. But I just don't see us being able to hang with Oregon in that offense. I don't think we'll be able to score enough points. Give me Oregon to move on to the second round, or the third round, I guess it is. Don't want to talk too much about that one. Makes me upset that I'm having to do that. Oregon moves to the Final Four. Now, the next one is the game I am most excited for, ladies and gentlemen. Texas versus Arizona State. I don't know why I about said Andiona. Who in the world is Andiona? Texas and Arizona State. Give me Arizona State and Cam Scatterbo. Like I said, I'm not high on Texas. I think that Sam Leavitt and Cam Scatterbo can score some points on this Texas team, unlike any team besides Georgia has been able to. I just don't trust Quinn Ewers to make big-time throws. I know he led them to the playoffs last year and lost on the final play, but he's regressed since last year, and I think that's the obvious. I think Arch Manning is going to get involved. I think he'll get involved against Clemson, whether it be running the ball or passing the ball, but I'm going to take Arizona State. I can't pick the higher seed every time. You guys know how it is. I'm going to take Arizona State to move on to the Final Four. Next game, this is going to come to a surprise because you guys know I'm high on Georgia. Georgia's just a championship pedigree program. They're the best program in college football. But you don't have your starting quarterback, and as much as people want to hate on Carson Beck, he's a lot better than Gunnar Stockton, or at least the half we saw of Gunnar Stockton, who looked pretty good in a drive, but then didn't look very good for the rest of the game. Like I said, I'm high on Notre Dame's defense in that secondary. Georgia's receivers have struggled this year. Really, just catching the ball in general. They lead the country in drops. I'm going to have to take Notre Dame on this one. I think they can get their run game established. I think Riley Leonard can make some plays with his legs, and I think that it's really going to hurt Georgia not having their starting quarterback. I know that, Tua's come in and won games, and Dwayne Haskins, and, there's been backups win it before. Those guys were NFL caliber guys, and I'm not saying Gunnar Stockton's not going to make it to the NFL one day. But Tua Tagovailoa was a first-round pick. Dwayne Haskins was a first-round pick. And those guys were Heisman finalists. So that's my reasoning there. Give me Notre Dame. Then Penn State versus Boise. Ashton Jeanty, I love Ashton Jeanty. If you guys listen to this show every day, which I feel like I said it like 4 times now, counting the interview with Eric, Ashton Jeanty's special. I think he should have been the Heisman. I think Penn State is too talented across the board. I think Abdul Carter is going to make some plays, and they're going to try and force Boise State into beating them with the quarterback, which, everybody's tried to say that they're going to do. That everyone's tried to say that they're going to make Boise State's quarterback beat them, but no one's been able to stop Ashton Jeanty. I think Penn State's too much for him. Give me Penn State to move to the Final Four. So that leaves my Final Four not a normal one, to say the least. I've got Oregon, Arizona State, Notre Dame, and Penn State. Now, maybe everybody's like, Will, what in the world are you thinking? And you're right. Maybe I'm overthinking it, and maybe I'm too used to March Madness when it's a bracket like this, and it's the postseason of a college sport. And I understand football isn't March Madness. I understand football is not basketball. But I also know that I've seen a lot of upsets this year in college football with the portal and everything else. It's not what it used to be. So that's my Final Four, and I'm going to stick with it. Oregon versus Arizona State. Oregon. Give me Oregon. Stays undefeated. Heads to the national championship. And, Oregon's a very good football team. I trust Dylan Gabriel, which I can't say about all the quarterbacks in this college football playoff. Dylan Gabriel's a heck of a player. I think he makes plays down the field. I think they get their run game going. I think Oregon's got the most talented roster out of these 4 teams. Give me Oregon. Notre Dame and Penn State. I'm going to ride Notre Dame's defense again. I'm going to take Notre Dame's defense again against Penn State. I think Drew Aller could slip up. Drew Aller and Riley Leonard, that's an example right there. Do I trust either of them? Not necessarily. But I trust Notre Dame's run game, which, don't get me wrong, Penn State's run game is great. Nick Singleton and Katron Allen, like I just said, are great running backs. Jeremiah Love is better than both of them, in my opinion. And I think Riley Leonard can make plays with his legs. And I just think that defense is better than Penn State's. And that secondary can force Drew Aller into making some bad decisions. Give me Notre Dame. We've got Oregon and Notre Dame in the college football finale. It's not the championship a lot of people would have predicted early. It's not the championship a lot of people are predicting now. Give me Oregon as the 2024-2025 first ever 12-team playoff winner. Your national champion is the Oregon Ducks, undefeated season. I trust Dylan Gabriel. I trust their receivers. I trust Tess Johnson to make plays down the field. And I think Oregon's just going to win this one. I think they're going to win the college football playoffs. And like I keep saying, I think it's Dylan Gabriel that wins it for him. Experienced, poised, composed. He's got it all. So I think Oregon wins it. I hope that I'm so wrong, and I hope Tennessee beats Oregon in the freaking Rose Bowl. I think that would be awesome. And I hope I'm the most wrong there is. And I hope that we end up playing the fake UT in the Final Four and we beat Texas to go to the national championship. And I hope that the Vols win it all. That's my real prediction right there. But that pretty much wraps it up. We didn't talk basketball this episode because it's football right now, and the basketball team isn't playing anybody worth anything. Me and my girlfriend actually went to the game against Western Carolina. I think it was Western Carolina. It was something crazy. We just beat the mess out of them. Zakai Ziegler almost had a triple-double, and they won in very demanding fashion. But thank you guys for watching. I hope everybody enjoys their weekend. It's the holiday season, and I know we'll have an episode before it, but the day before it, actually. I might dang wear a Santa hat for it on Christmas Eve. But I hope everybody who's watching this episode has a Merry Christmas. If you're traveling, safe travels, and I hope everybody has a happy holiday. Thank you guys for watching, and thank you guys for all the support. It's a Christmas present in its own right, having all these people watching, whether it's 30, whether it's 200. It really means the world to me that people will care what I got to say. So thank you guys for watching. Make sure you leave a comment of your prediction down below, and have a good rest of your day. Go Vols.